Shabbat Shalom. Good morning, YouTube. Today we are again reading out of the Bible. I am reading from a translation called the Scriptures. If you want to read along with this translation and you don't have one, there is a link in the description below for an online version. But either way, grab your Bible, grab your coffee, and let's read. Today we are starting in Joshua chapter 7. But the children of Israel committed a trespass regarding that which is under the ban. For Achan, son of Carmi, son of Zabdi, son of Zerah, of the tribe of Yehudah, took of that which is under the ban. And the displeasure of Yahweh burned against the children of Israel. Now Yehoshua sent men to Jericho, to Ai, which is beside Beth Awen, on the east side of Beth El, and spoke to them, saying, Go up and spy out the land. And the men went up and spied out Ai. And they returned to Yehoshua and said to him, Let not all the people go up, but let about 2,000 or 3,000 men go up and strike Ai. Do not make all the people toil up there, for the people of Ai are few. And about 3,000 men went up there from the people, but they fled before the men of Ai. And the men of Ai struck about 36 men, for they pursued them from before the gate as far as Shebarim, and smote them on the desert. So the hearts of the people melted and became like water. And Yehoshua tore his garments and fell to the earth on his face before the ark of Yahweh until evening, both he and the elders of Israel, and they put dust on their heads. And Yehoshua said, O Master Yahweh, why have you brought this people over the Jordan at all, to give us into the hand of the Amorites to destroy us? If only we had been content to stay beyond the Jordan. O Yahweh, what do I say when Israel turns its back before its enemies, and the Canaanites and all the inhabitants of the land here, and shall surround us and cut off our name from the earth? What then do you do for your great name? And Yahweh said to Yehoshua, Rise up, why are you lying on your face? Israel has sinned, and they have also transgressed my covenant which I commanded them. And they have even taken some of that which is under the ban, and have both stolen and deceived, and also put it among their own goods. And the sons of Israel shall not be able to stand before their enemies. They are going to turn their backs before their enemies, for they have become accursed. I am not with you any more, unless you destroy that which is under the ban from your midst. Rise up, set the people apart, and you shall say, Set yourselves apart for tomorrow, because thus said Yahweh Elohim of Israel. That which is under the ban is in your midst, O Israel. You are not able to stand before your enemies until you put away that which is under the ban out of your midst. And you shall be brought near in the morning according to your tribes. And it shall be, the tribe which Yahweh takes comes according to clans, and the clan which Yahweh takes comes by households, and the household which Yahweh takes comes by men. And it shall be that he who is taken with that which is under the ban is burned with fire, he and all that he has, because he has transgressed the covenant of Yahweh, and because he has committed wickedness in Israel. So Yehoshua arose early in the morning and brought Israel by their tribes, and the tribe of Yehudah was taken. And he brought the clan of Yehudah, and he took the clan of Zarhites. And he brought the clan of Zarhites by men, and Zabdi was taken. And he brought his household by men, and Achan, son of Carmi, son of Zabdi, son of Zerah, of the tribe of Yehudah, was taken. Then Yehoshua said to Achan, My son, now give esteem to Yahweh Elohim of Israel, and make confession to him. And please declare to me what you have done. Do not hide it from me. So Achan answered Yehoshua and said, Truly I have sinned against Yahweh Elohim of Israel, and this is what I did. When I saw among the spoil a lovely garment from Shinar, and 200 shekels of silver, and a wedge of gold weighing 50 shekels, I coveted them and took them. And see, they are hidden in the ground in the midst of my tent, with the silver under it. And Yehoshua sent messengers, and they ran to the tent, and see, it was hidden in his tent, with the silver under it. And they took from the midst of the tent, brought them to Yehoshua and to all the children of Israel, and laid them out before Yahweh. Then Yehoshua and all Israel with him took Achan son of Zerah, and the silver, and the garment, and the wedge of gold, and his sons and his daughters, and his oxen, and his donkeys, and his sheep, and his tent, and all that he had, and they brought them to the valley of Achor. And Yehoshua said, Why have you troubled us? Yahweh does trouble you today. Then all Israel stoned him with stones, and they burned them with fire after they had stoned them with stones. And they raised over him a great heap of stones, which remains to this day. Then Yahweh turned from the fierceness of his displeasure. Therefore the name of that place has been called the Valley of Achor to this day. So, battle number 1. Somebody takes what he's not supposed to take. And in the next fight, they lose. Chapter 8. And Yahweh said to Yehoshua, Do not be afraid, nor be discouraged. Take all the soldiers with you, and arise, go up to Ai. See, I have given into your hand the sovereign of Ai, and his people, and his city, and his land. So you shall do to Ai and its sovereign as you did to Jericho and its sovereign. Only its spoil and its livestock you take as plunder for yourselves. Set for yourselves an ambush for the city behind it. And Yehoshua and all the soldiers rose up to go to Ai, and Yehoshua chose 30,000 mighty brave men and sent them away by night. And commanded them, saying, See, you are going to lie in ambush against the city, behind the city. Do not go very far from the city, but all of you shall be prepared. While I and all the people who are with me approach the city, and it shall be when they come out against us as formerly that we shall flee before them. And they shall come out after us till we have drawn them from the city, as though saying, They are fleeing before us as formerly, and we shall flee before them. Then you shall rise from the ambush and seize the city. And Yahweh your Elohim shall give it into your hand. And it shall be, when you capture the city, that you burn the city with fire. Do according to the word of Yahweh. See, I have commanded you. And Yehoshua sent them out, and they went to lie in ambush, and stayed between Beth-el and Ai, on the west side of Ai. But Yehoshua stayed that night in the midst of the people. And Yehoshua rose up early in the morning, and inspected the people, and went up, he and the elders of Israel, before the people to Ai. And all the soldiers who were with him went up and drew near, and came before the city, and camped on the north side of Ai, with the valley between them and Ai. And he took about 5,000 men, and set them in ambush between Beth-el and Ai, on the west side of the city. So they stationed the people, all the army that was on the north of the city, and its rear guard on the west of the city. And Yehoshua went that night into the midst of the valley. And it came to be, when the sovereign of Ai saw it, that the men of the city hastened and rose up early and went out against Israel to battle, he and all his people, at an appointed place before the desert plain. But he did not know that there was an ambush against him behind the city. And Yehoshua and all Israel let themselves be beaten before them, and fled by the way of the wilderness. And all the people who were in Ai were called together to pursue them, and they pursued Yehoshua and were drawn away from the city. So there was not a man left in Ai or Beth-el who did not go out after Israel, and they left the city open and pursued Israel. And Yahweh said to Yehoshua, Stretch out the spear that is in your hand toward Ai, for I give it into your hand. And Yehoshua stretched out the spear that he had in his hand toward the city. And the ambush rose up quickly from their place, and they ran at the stretching out of his hand, and entered the city and took it, and hastened to burn the city with fire. And the men of Ai looked behind them, and saw the smoke of the city rising to the heavens. And there was no power in them to flee this way or that way, for the people who had fled to the wilderness turned back on the pursuers. For when Yehoshua and all Israel saw that the ambush had captured the city, and that the smoke of the city went up, they turned back and struck the men of Ai. The others also came out of the city against them, so they were in the midst of Israel, some on this side and some on that side, and they struck them until none were left, and none had escaped. But the sovereign of Ai they caught alive, and brought him to Yehoshua. And it came to be, when Israel ended killing all the inhabitants of Ai in the field, in the wilderness where they pursued them, and when they had fallen by the edge of the sword until they were consumed, that all Israel returned to Ai and struck it with the edge of the sword. And it came to be that all who fell that day, both men and women, were 12,000, all men of Ai. And Yehoshua did not draw back his hand with which he stretched out the spear until he had put the inhabitants of Ai under the ban. Only the livestock and the spoil of that city Israel took as booty for themselves, according to the word of Yahweh which he had commanded Yehoshua. And Yehoshua burned Ai and made it a heap forever, a ruin to this day. And he hanged the sovereign of Ai on a tree until evening. And at sunset Yehoshua commanded that they should take his corpse down from the tree and throw it at the entrance of the gate of the city, and raise over it a great heap of stones to this day. And Yehoshua built a slaughter place to Yahweh, Elohim of Israel, in Mount Ebal, as Moshe the servant of Yahweh had commanded the children of Israel, as it is written in the book of the Torah of Moshe, a slaughter place of unhewn stones, over which no man has wielded iron. And they offered on it ascending offerings to Yahweh and slaughtered peace offerings. And there, in the presence of the children of Israel, he wrote on the stones a copy of the Torah of Moshe, which he had written. And all Israel, the sojourner as well as the native, with their elders and offerers and judges, stood on either side of the ark before the priests, the Levites, who bore the ark of the covenant of Yahweh. Half of them were in front of Mount Gerizim, and half of them in front of Mount Ebal, as Moshe the servant of Yahweh had commanded before, that they should bless the people of Israel. And afterwards he read all the words of the Torah, the blessings and the cursings, according to all that is written in the book of the Torah. There was not a word of all that Moshe had commanded which Yehoshua did not read before all the assembly of Israel, with the women and the little ones and the sojourners who accompanied them. Chapter 9. And it came to be when all the sovereigns who were beyond the Jordan, in the hills and in the low country, and in all the coasts of the great sea toward Lebanon, the Hittite and the Amorite and the Canaanite and the Perizzite and the Hivite and the Jebusite, heard, they gathered together to fight with Yehoshua and Israel with one accord. And the inhabitants of Gibeon heard what Yehoshua had done to Jericho and Ai, and they acted slyly and went and prepared to be envoys. And they took old sacks on their donkeys, old wineskins torn and mended, and old and patched sandals on their feet, and old garments on themselves. And all the bread of their provision was dry, it was crumbs. And they went to Yehoshua to the camp of Gilgal, and said to him, to the men of Israel, We have come from a far land, and now make a covenant with us. But the men of Israel said to the Hivites, It could be that you dwell in our midst, so how would we make a covenant with you? And they said to Yehoshua, We are your servants. And Yehoshua said to them, Who are you, and where do you come from? So they said to him, From a land very far off your servants have come, because the name of Yahweh, your Elohim. For we have heard of the report of him, and all that he did in Mitzrayim, and all that he had done on the two sovereigns of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon, sovereign of Heshbon, to Og, sovereign of Bashan, who was at Ashtaroth. So our elders and all the inhabitants of our land spoke to us, saying, Take food with you for the journey, and go to meet them, and say to them, We are your servants, and now make a covenant with us. This bread of ours we took hot for our provision from our houses on the day that we left to come to you, but now see it is dry and it is crumbly. And these wineskins which we filled were new, and see they are torn. And these our garments and our sandals have become old because of the very long journey. And the men of Israel took some of their food, but they did not ask the mouth of Yahweh. And Yehoshua made peace with them, and made a covenant with them to let them live, and the rulers of the congregation swore to them. And it came to be at the end of 3 days, after they had made a covenant with them, that they heard that they were their neighbors who dwelt near them. And the children of Israel set out and came to their cities on the 3rd day. Now their cities were Gibeon and Kephirah, and Beeroth, and Kiriath Yearim. But the children of Israel did not strike them, because the rulers of the congregation had sworn to them by Yahweh, Elohim of Israel. And all the congregation grumbled against the rulers. But all the rulers said to all the congregation, We have sworn to them by Yahweh, Elohim of Israel, and we are unable to touch them now. Let us do this to them. We shall keep them alive, lest wrath be upon us because of the oath which we swore to them. And the rulers said to them, Let them live, but let them be woodcutters and drawers of water for all the congregation, as the rulers had promised them. Then Yehoshua called for them, and he spoke to them, saying, Why have you deceived us, saying, We are far from you, yet you are dwelling in our midst? And now you are cursed, and you shall not cease from being slaves, and woodcutters, and drawers of water for the house of my Elohim. And they answered Yehoshua and said, Your servants were clearly told that Yahweh your Elohim commanded his servant Moshe to give you all the land, and to destroy all the inhabitants of the land from before you. So we were very much afraid of our lives because of you, and have done this deed. And now see, we are in your hands. Do with us as it seems good and right to do to us. And he did so to them, and delivered them out of the hand of the children of Israel, and they did not kill them. And that day Yehoshua made them woodcutters and drawers of water for the congregation, and for the slaughter place of Yahweh, even to this day, at the place that he should choose. So yeah, a couple of the neighbors are just like, well, if they're going to kill us all, we might as well try and make a deal with them, but we better pretend that we're someone else from far away. And they fall for it and they agree to it. But that is the end of the reading for today. Thanks for coming along with me. I hope you are reading it for yourself. Don't take my word for it. And I hope you join us again next Saturday. May the Father bless you. Shalom.